All right. In 1970, Gil Scott Heron gifted us with a phrase, "The revolution will not be televised." We've seen that play out over the years, the student activism, the work of students on campus to change culture, to change policies, to change society in ways that meet their needs. When I talk about student activism, often what comes to mind for people is the activism of the 60s and the 70s, something like what you see on this photo here. This is a photo from in front of Sproul Hall at UC Berkeley in 1964, the free speech movement that students engaged in. Students at the time at UC Berkeley wanted to have some campus activism regarding the war in Vietnam. However, the administration at the university said, nope, this is a state-sponsored state institution. You can't advocate for that. The students then decided to occupy space. They filled up the steps of Sproul Hall. They filled up buildings all over campus. They also filled up open space on campus. At one point even, one student refused to leave. A police officer came to arrest that student to make them leave. As that student was being put into the police car, word got out, hundreds of students came and sat around the police car and refused to move. And the images of that are amazing. The students choosing to own their power and to own their ability to affect change on campus. That's what often we think about. Perhaps you think about Kent State, where the student activism there raised to such a level that the administration called in the National Guard to campus, and we know about the horrible events that happened at Kent State after that. Often our minds go there when we think about student activism on campus. However, it's still happening. Students all over the United States are still advocating for what they need, still advocating for lower tuition. Students are advocating for, even on our own campus, responses to sexual assault and cultures of rape on campus. They're owning their voice and they're owning their experiences. Students on our campus are also even taking it to the extremes that we saw in the 60s and 70s. Just this last year, in my role as a student affairs professional, I got to spend time with students as they gathered on campus to advocate for the respect and honor and dignity due to Black lives on campus. Not only did they gather in an open common space on campus, they went to a building that for them symbolized whiteness and all the power that comes with that and chose to occupy that building. They laid down in the floors while class was going on. They intervened in the hallways and made it so that students had to literally step over their peers' bodies, the black and brown bodies on campus, in order to advance to their next class. Students aren't stopping activism on campus, rather they're doing it in different ways. And some of those different ways are with technology and social media. Students are using social media apps such as Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat to organize themselves and advocate for their causes. So they're still doing activism, it just looks different than what it did in the 60s and the 70s. For example, just a couple weeks ago, students on our campus chose to engage in a day known as the National Day of Standing with Immigrants. And so what they asked folks to do was to change their profile picture on their social media to something similar to what you see here. For that day, have it up, people asked you about it, be ready to talk about it. However, they combined that with material activism and physical activism on campus. So they asked people to stop by a student center and take a picture with a sign that said something similar. They also held a rally on campus where they spoke out and they had different spoken word and poems and different pieces of information to get out to people. And they combined those pieces of social activism on the internet as well as social activism in physical space. We see continuously that more and more conferences are being put together. Students are gathering to talk about what does this new wave of doing activism on campus looks like, and it always includes new technologies, specifically social media. As we've heard multiple times today, the prevalence and pervasiveness of technology in our life comes in many ways through our phones, right? And so students are using those in ways as well. You all have probably all seen on social media when a video has gone viral, right? Somebody brings out their phone when something's going on, they video it, they show it to people, and it spreads all over the internet, right? It happens all the time. Other tools like Twitter and Facebook posts go viral, things students are talking about. That's how they're using technology to spread the word about their concerns. Research that's been done into this topic recently has tried to coin some different terms. Maybe you've heard about slacktivism, right? Those slackers doing activism, right? Or clicktivism, right? So the idea with clicktivism, some researchers have attempted to codify what they see students doing and what's going on. You can see it has different points there, such as it's often situated online. There's an impulsive nature to it, right? They see it, they click it, they click share, or they click like, or something like that. It's very impulsive. The researchers are noting that they feel like it's very non-committal, that the students can just post it and keep moving, and they don't feel like it affects their everyday life very much. They also think that it doesn't draw upon specified knowledge, that it just relies on their general knowledge. They don't have to know anything specific about the topic they're talking about. And you see some of the other points on here that's easily replicated, engages a political object, and an action is often performed by doing it by clicking share or like or something like that. However, what most of these pieces of research miss is that the students do often feel an effect. There's also some recent studies out there that aren't as prevalent that say that students are very savvy with political topics. They're very savvy with their social media and their technology, and they're combining those things. And so while it may not have the implications that it did for a person who is perhaps on the steps of Sproul Hall in all the same ways in 1960s, it does have effects for them socially and in their relationships, and for further implications going down the road, thinking about applying to jobs and how private is that social media and what will people think about it. So it does have effects for students, just in different ways. So future research on this will be really helpful to examine how not only are students affecting how we think about previous forms of activism, but how is their current activism going to be affecting them into the future, and how we start to think about activism. That it doesn't have to fit the old models that we've all traditionally held to, rather that it can fit something new for a new generation as they find their voice. So, just as Gil Scott Heron shared with us in 1970 that the revolution will not be televised, it may not be, but it very well may be on our social media. Thanks.